and that's just my personal preference. But I agree with you that women do have a tendency to, and it's science. This is science, that we think that we are able to handle a casual relationship, and then when we form that emotional chemical bond with that person after having sex, and it all those thoughts about keeping it casual go right out the window. And I agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I just realized that we were not recording at the beginning. So for anybody who just tuned in, I am Sandy Weiner. I am the dating and relationship coach for women over 40 at lastfirstdate.com. Here's my website, lastfirstdate.com. And I am speaking today with Melani Robinson. She is a blogger and an author and a dating expert. Would you call yourself?
I am. I was named one of the 10 best online dating experts.
Excellent. And Melanie used to do boot camps for men, correct?
I did, yes.
So in those boot camps, did you did mostly online dating? Did you also talk about sex with these men?
Well, I mean, we talked about basically going from the profile to the first date to continuing on that process. And I will say that a lot of men were talking about wanting a committed relationship, as much as we tend to believe that men are only out there for sex and are looking for that sort of thing. I think that what we find over 40 more frequently, and I see this all the time online, is you'll see somebody say no hookups. And of course, I'm on Tinder and I'm on Bumble, and Tinder is known for and probably not very fairly for being a hookup site. But I have to tell you that more, I don't know from the men's perspective if women are writing that in their profile as frequently, but I am finding that men are writing no hookups, looking for long-term relationships. So I believe that is something that men want, as much as women do, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. I think that we tend to generalize about men and women. And so one of the most important things is not to generalize, to really find out from that person that you're dating what they want, and to really look for signs also, not just hear what the words are, but look for signs that line up, that say that they mean what they say. So you can tell when a person is commitment oriented or wants a serious relationship. And one thing before we get to the sex part again is I want to just say that a lot of women that I coach are afraid to bring up the topic of wanting a serious relationship. They're afraid that it's going to sound like they want them, that they immediately know that this is going to be the guy for them. And that's not what we're talking about here. So when I say to a woman, I want you to put it out there that you're looking for something serious. If you are, because if somebody's looking for something casual and you're looking for something serious, you're not on the same page. And that's true about people in different stages of life as well. So for example, I was telling Melanie before, I met this really great guy who is just in the process of divorce right now. He just got into online dating. He is having the time of his life. He wants to have fun. He wants to play. And that's great. But I don't want to date him. I know that I am several years post-divorce and I'm looking for a serious relationship. So I could be his friend, but I don't want to get involved in a dating situation where a couple months in, he's going to be going like, I'm a kid in a candy shop. I want that one. I want that one. And I'm still going through a divorce and I'm going through the throes of all the insanity of that. I don't want to go through that with somebody. And there's nothing wrong with, just stating your needs up front. So the more you know about yourself, the more you can say, hey, this is what I want. Right? You don't tell somebody else what they need. You tell somebody what you need.
Right. And no judgment. That great guy is doing exactly what he should be doing post-divorce. He's dating a lot. He's getting out there. He's learning about himself. He hasn't been single in a while. So doing that sort of thing doesn't make him a bad guy, doesn't make him a dishonest guy. Obviously, he told you very clearly. And it also is a wonderful opportunity for you, Sandy, down the road when he's done playing around. You know, he may come back to you and say, hey, you know, you were awesome, and I'd really like to see you again, and I'm ready to get serious now. So there's nothing, this doesn't make him a bad guy, because he's doing exactly what he should be doing post-divorce.
Exactly. And so when you come in knowing that and you say, well, I don't really want to date somebody who's just had a loss, or just ending a relationship, or just ending a marriage, because there are certain things that happen consistently with people like that. But there could be somebody who's divorcing who has really been separated for the last 3 years and is totally done, and all they need to do is sign the papers. I mean, I had a friend who was separated for 7 years. He was dating. A lot of women didn't want to date him because he didn't have that piece of paper, but he was so done. They were living in separate houses, and the only reason he didn't have a divorce was because of financial reasons. He wanted to keep his wife close by for the kids. And so he knew that once he gave her the financial freedom, she would probably move far away and it would affect his kids' lives. That's the only reason. So we have to speak up. That's really just so important. We have to speak up. We have to know what we want. So whether it's what you want in a relationship, but also what do you want sexually? So you decide before you even go on a date. I only want to date people when I'm monogamous, when I'm exclusive, when they shut their profile down, when they've shared STD results with me and I've shared with them. That could be one of your requirements. And so if that's the case, then don't make an exception. You know, don't just say, well, he's so good looking, I'm just gonna sleep with him anyway. And condoms, who needs a condom? He doesn't like wearing one, so that's okay. Right. If condoms are a definite, then you need to be absolutely, you know, steadfast in your condoms, and making sure that he wears a condom. So
well,
Melanie,
and you should also, if condoms are your deal breaker, you need to carry condoms with you. You can't expect, if you can't say, well, you know, I want to use condoms every single time. And if you don't want to get yourself in a position where you're ready to have sex and neither of you has a condom. So always, you know, there's nothing wrong with, I definitely have condoms and would happily use them if I could find somebody that I wanted to have sex with. I mean, it would be really great, but you need to have your own condoms.
Absolutely. So come prepared. Yeah. And that just speaks to taking responsibility no matter what. Bobbi just texted, just Facebook messaged me, by the way, and she's trying to reach me, and I don't know what's happening, but I just messaged her back, so hopefully she'll be joining us soon. So let's say you know what you want, you're able to express that, you have the talk before you get sexually involved. So say you're not ready to have sex yet. One of the things that a lot of women do, and I'm talking about women, but this applies to men too. A lot of women will just say, you're moving too fast. You know, so a lot of men want to have sex sooner than women do. And so what do these women do? So the one thing you don't want to do is shame him, make him feel terrible. He's a guy, he's thinking about sex. That's a pretty normal thing for a guy to be thinking about, and you should be flattered he's thinking about having sex with you. So if you are attracted, but you need more time and you need to develop a sense of safety with a man, let him know you're attracted to him. That's the first thing that's really important. You know, you may not be ready yet. You may need a little more time. You have to decide, you know, are you comfortable making out? Are you comfortable doing, you know, second base, third base, whatever they call it when you're over 40 and not in high school anymore. But it's, you know, it's important to define for yourself, what is it that you're comfortable with? And then go ahead and do that. So for a lot of women, it's, you know, it's okay to be fooling around a bit with more than one person even, until you decide, I want to spend more time with this person and I want to get to know them. So, it's again, what's going to work for you? And you have to really know, am I going to feel really hurt if I don't hear from him the next day? If that's the case, then don't open yourself up to hurt. Protect yourself a little bit while staying vulnerable. And that's the balance. It's, you don't want to be harsh. You want to stay feminine and vulnerable and soft with a man, but definitely have your boundaries and don't be afraid to express them.
Yeah, and that, I think, Sandy, that also applies with the physical changes that happen to our bodies as we are perimenopausal and as we're going through menopause. And I think it's interesting. I had a conversation with a friend of mine today, a male friend, and I was talking about doing this today, being on this blab with you, and about sex and about the changes that happen to a woman's body and the need for some honesty and with our sexual partners. And he said, and men need to be more honest as well about the changes that happen to our body as we age, because there are some changes. And he said, perhaps it's more obvious with men because of the number of Viagra commercials that are on television, or Cialis or whatever. But those changes are happening to male bodies as they age as well. And I think that we have to get ourselves into a space where we can talk openly about those kind of things before sex, instead of having something perhaps happen during sex that is uncomfortable, such as women have a tendency not to be able lubrication might be necessary and things like that, or it takes longer for things to start working and sexual feelings to, perhaps when we were in our 20s or even 30s, those feelings were instant, but it takes a while for us to warm up and perhaps more foreplay and things like that. And it's nice if we are comfortable enough in the relationship prior to sex to have those kind of talks with the person that we are going to then have sex with.
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up, because both men and women go through hormonal changes. Okay, hold on. Bobbi's here. Bobbi is coming in.
Hi.
Bobbi, hey! I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong link. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I just thought you were dead on the floor somewhere, because I'm like, where are you?
I was thinking the same thing. So welcome, Bobbi Palmer, and Bobbi, meet Melanie.
Hi, Bobbi.
Nice to meet you.
So Bobbi, introduce yourself, and then we're going to talk about our bodies and the changes and all that yummy stuff.
Great. Okay. I'm Bobbi Palmer. I'm the founder of Date Like a Grown Up. You can find me and all kinds of great support for women over 40 at datelikeagrownup.com. And I don't want to interrupt your flow, your mojo. So go ahead and I'll jump in.
Okay, so we're talking about how men also go through changes, women go through changes, and how important it is to talk about these changes and what you need differently when you're over 40. So Melanie mentioned lubrication, that it could take longer to get things started. Men sometimes have impotency issues. Some are willing to talk about it and some are not. I had a client who was dating a guy who was impotent and not willing to deal with it. And she was taking bioidentical hormones to help herself be more sexually aroused and lubricated and feel excited to be with him. And so she was like a 20-year-old and he was like a 90-year-old. And he was actually 10 years younger than she was, but he wouldn't talk to his doctor about it. And it became a deal breaker in their relationship. The cuddling and all that was okay for actually 2 years. She tolerated it. But sex is an important part in a relationship, and it doesn't have to only look one way.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of ways for people to satisfy each other. And it's really about having conversations, feeling comfortable with your body enough and with your sexuality enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
So Yeah, Bobbi, what do you have to say?
This just came up yesterday. I was talking to a woman who was a client of mine and is now a friend of mine. And she's been with her man for, I guess it's been about 5 years now. But at the beginning, she was 65 and he was 72 when they met. And at the beginning of their relationship, he was having performance. He was a widower after being married like 40 years or something. He was having performance issues and he broke up with her. He said, "You deserve better. I can't do this for you. I need to stop seeing you." And she basically, with working with me, went back to him and said, "Yeah, that's not acceptable. That's not going to happen. We're going to talk about this and we're going to work this out." And normally she would have just said, "Okay," like he's breaking up. She called crying, we're ending it. I said, "Yeah, let's have a grown-up conversation." And they did. And they went through, a couple months of really trying to work things out because he was really uncomfortable. He was ashamed. He was embarrassed. And she told him, "No reason to be that way. Let's just do this together." I just talked to her yesterday, and she was kind of complaining to me that he wants to have sex 4 and 5 times a week. I'm kind of sick of it.
Be careful what you wish for,
Honestly,
right?
it happened just yesterday. And I thought, so many partners, so many couples end things because they don't have that adult conversation. He was running because he didn't want to face it and didn't want to talk about it. So props to her for stepping up and continuing. And now, as my father would say, that should be the worst of her problems, is he wants to have sex too much.
Yeah, that's great. So you helped her have that grown-up conversation, which is so important. I think I've said it like 6 times before you even got on the call, we have to talk. We have to not make assumptions. We have to talk to each other. We have to figure out what we need and talk about it, and not ever presume we know what's going on for the other person. But also create a safe space, because sex requires safety. It requires comfort, safety, trust. And that's why I think, what I'm noticing more and more is that one of the primary concerns for women when it comes to sex is they don't feel safe. And men are ready and women are not yet. And that's because the safety hasn't been established. And so any men who are listening here, please know that women just need to feel safe. It's not necessarily true that they don't want to have sex with you ever. They just need to feel safe with you. And that gets established with time and with these great conversations and being open and honest and trustworthy. So that's just really critical. One of my biggest passions is helping women communicate their emotions, their feelings, their needs, not hold things in, not make up stuff. We were so good at making up stuff.
It's our job.
It's our job.
Yeah, and Sandy, can we talk a little bit about being comfortable with our bodies and the need for us to perhaps be fearless in that area? And I think too many times women allow they're very self-conscious of their bodies and their scars and their bumps and lumps and things like that happen as we get older, and it happens to everyone. And most of us don't have the luxury of having a plastic surgeon on call to do touch-ups every 6 months or year. So we're going to have those issues. And can we talk about what happens when we allow those things to get in the way during sex, and our fear perhaps even of getting to that stage, because that means we have to take our clothes off and show this imperfect body to this man that we obviously have strong feelings for.
Yes. yes. I want to speak from my own experience first. So 2 years after my divorce, I finally was ready to date and take my clothes off. And my biggest fear was I was too saggy. I had 4 kids. I nursed them. My body was not what it was in my 20s when I was working out all the time and, I was perky. What I didn't realize is that we all age, and that's a natural part of who we are as people. I mean, it would be pretty weird if we were all like still perky like 20-year-olds when we were in our 50s. And it took one man to say to me, "You're beautiful," to realize that I was stressing over stupid things that, in general, I have never met a man who didn't find a woman's body beautiful in bed. And Melanie, you have talked to many men, and so I wanted to hear from you about your perspective from the male perspective, to just kind of let women know that they're okay and that they need to really embrace who they are, what their bodies look like.
Right, and I think that happens a lot. It's kind of like, oh, let's not have the lights on, and and the covers are pulled up, and they're self-conscious. And I want to tell you from my perspective, and the men that I have talked to and encountered, they don't see those things. They are not seeing the things that we stand in front of the mirror and we look at our bodies and we pick them apart from head to toe, and we see all these imperfections, but I promise you that men are not seeing those same things. They are excited. They think the female form is beautiful. They're aroused. They are so we are allowing those kind of issues that are only our problem to get in the way of having fulfilling and uninhibited sex. And my feeling is that we have to start looking at ourselves with love and looking at our bodies as beautiful things, and looking at those scars as just a record of the experiences that we've had in life. I mean, I had 2 cesarean sections. I have stretch marks. I have a muffin top. I have all those things, and no, my body is certainly not what it was in my 20s and 30s, but this is my body, and I love it, and I carried my 2 children, and I look at myself and I think I can't allow these things that are fact. I mean, I'm looking in the mirror, I have these things, but I can't allow these things that everybody has as they age to get in the way of having a satisfying sexual experience or a satisfying sex life. And so I have worked very hard on getting beyond that and just deciding that I'm going to let go and enjoy myself and embrace this body as it is right here. And it will be different in 10 years as well. And so be
Amen,
it.
Sister.
And
thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Bobbi.
Well, and the other thing too is there's this, by worrying so much about our bodies and having that affect whether we're going to be intimate with a man, it also, it presumes that that's all he cares about. It presumes that this man is, like it was when we were 18 and, the boys just wanted to get laid. And so I'm sure that the women that we work with, they're looking for love. They're looking for intimacy. They're looking for heart connection. And the men, if you're thinking about being with a man and having, being sexual, I'm assuming that you've talked about the conversations today, I know, but I'm assuming that that he's looking for the same thing. And if that's the case, the presumption that all he cares about is what your boobs look like is not just wrong, but it's kind of not, it's unkind toward him. And if you're really that worried about it, then I have to ask you if you trust the man and if you're making a good choice about whether to be intimate with him, right? Because there's so.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think that it's human nature, though. I think that when we see people like Christy Brinkley, that is, we see images of Christy Brinkley and we see celebrities, and that's very unrealistic. And this isn't just this isn't something that is just happening with women our age.
Yeah.
Girls are feeling this as well. And what I can say to you from a person that has had a lot of experience in working with men, they aren't seeing these things that we are seeing. We are looking in the mirror. We are seeing these they are not seeing those things, and they are into it and excited and physically attracted and all of those things, and we are focusing on something that
that's
that they
kind of
do
what I'm
not
saying
even
is
see.
give him credit. It's the same. I had a conversation yesterday with a woman who was really questioning. She's actually in the process of deciding when she'll feel okay about being intimate with this man she's been dating, and she's questioning if he really believes what he's saying to her about their relationship. And there comes a point at which you have to trust yourself that you're making a good choice, you're making a good decision about what you want to do, and you have to trust him. And so that trust should also relate to the bedroom, and should also relate to, hey, it's like an example. I have like gigantic cellulite filled thighs. It's just, I've had that for forever. My husband is always asking me to wear shorts. So, or we'll go to a store and he'll say, why don't you buy that bikini? And I honestly think to myself,
I love it.
I honestly think to myself, is he like freaking crazy? Seriously, I cannot believe it. But I have to think, you know what? I trust that he sees me that way. And that's the end of my self-talk. I had to teach myself that. So that's what I want other women to teach themselves. If you're in love with a man, if you trust a man enough to have sex with him and to be intimate with him, then trust that he's passionate about much more than, he's passionate about much more than the size of your boobs or your butt.
What does Bella have to say about that?
Well, and not only that, I mean, Bobbi, he is seeing those thighs and thinking those are the hottest thighs I've ever seen. And he's saying, I want her rocking that bikini. And so he's not, it's not like we have to even say he's looking beyond those things. He doesn't see those things. He sees you as this hot goddess that he's looking at those thighs saying, ooh, yes. And that body saying, put a bikini on that. We are the ones that do this to ourselves. We're doing this to ourselves.
How to draw, because I'm an artist. And we woke up in the morning and he said, I want to draw you naked. And I was like, and the whole time in my head, I had to like quiet those voices, like, just shut up. He wants to draw you naked. Just shut up. So it's, you're not going to sit there and argue, well, this body, why would you want to draw this body? Just say thank you. And so we have to work on our own self-talk, and men are so much better at this than we are in general. I mean, I think, Bobbi, you had that picture of how a man sees himself, and he's got that giant stomach, and he sees this hottie in the mirror, and the women who look great see themselves as so much worse. We need to reverse that. We should take a lesson from men with big guts and just go, hey, you're pretty hot. I even had that happen to me. I had broken up with a guy who had a big gut, and he said something like, well, I don't really know. He was very gracious about the breakup, but then he said, I'm not sure why you wouldn't like me. I'm just a slightly overweight guy from Brooklyn. And he wasn't slightly overweight. He was probably like 40 pounds overweight, but he saw himself as a great guy who was slightly overweight. Now, his weight wasn't the reason I broke up with him. Obviously, I dated him. I liked him. I didn't look at his body as the reason why I would date him or not date him. And I think we have to, and sexiness comes in all packages and all sizes, and it has so much more to do with the whole package than it does with cellulite or a muffin top. And I think we just need to believe in ourselves. So let's talk about, we talked a little bit about STD. So I don't know how many women actually, have the STD talk. That's an important one. I encourage all my clients to get tested, to make sure the guy has been tested. Somebody recently that I know just wrote about the fact that she has herpes. She made a huge announcement on a big publication about having herpes, and that some men have chosen not to date her because of it. And she's always honest. It doesn't flare up very often. It happened when she was like 18. Most people have some herpes on their, the oral herpes, not necessarily genital herpes. But herpes can be treated. And also, I once had a client who had herpes, and it was embarrassing to her that she had it. It's not. So here's the thing. It's not something that you did on purpose. It's not something that you even knew the other person was a carrier of, because people of all, socioeconomic backgrounds, of all shapes and sizes, carry STDs. I mean, it's just what is. You don't just get them because you're dirty or you had a lot of sex. All it takes is one partner to get an STD, and some of them go away and some of them don't.
Yeah.
So this woman ended up meeting a guy who had herpes, and so she was so ashamed of it. But then when she finally had the courage to talk to him about it and found out that he had it too, and he was totally cool with her, and they ended up having a great relationship. But if she was so ashamed that she wouldn't have been able to have that conversation, they never would have had a relationship. So it's important to own it, to own up to it, to treat it if it's treatable, but to work around it, just like you work around, impotency, and you work around any sexual issue.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on STDs. Anybody else want to add to that?
I dated a guy when I was first single in my 30s. I dated a guy who had herpes, and he was. We were dating, and we were only seeing each other, and it was progressing, and sex seemed very logical at that point, and I could not understand what his resistance was to sex, and I'm thinking, this is so strange, and I know he's excited, and I know he's into this. So what's the whole? Why is he holding back? And finally I just said, what's going on? Are you not into me? And he said, no, it's not that. And then he told me that he had herpes. And so I said, well, okay, but is this, and he said, I know, I'm just worried about it, and I didn't want to tell you. And I said, well, let's figure this out. Let's figure out what we have to do. And I don't know that much about it, but let me find out what I have to do. You know what I have to do. And so we were able to get beyond that, and to use the right amount of protection, and to understand what was going on. And you're right, he didn't have flare-ups very often. In fact, we were seeing each other for over a year, and he never had a flare-up during that entire time. But he was on medication for it. But it was certainly something that created confusion in our relationship as far as sex was concerned. And I think that the best advice that anyone can take is to just be honest about something like that, because once I learned what was going on, then we could figure out a solution. And I think the same would apply to.
He was lucky that you were open
to other STDs,
and
as well.
that you were encouraging him to have that conversation, because you could have walked away without a conversation, thinking, I'm not attractive to him. He's not turned on by me, which is what a lot of women might have thought. And he could have never slept with you and never had this great relationship. So good for you for bringing it up.
And remember too that herpes is epidemic in the people, especially women over 50. So postmenopausal women, we're excited, no birth control, yes, but the problem is it's creating this epidemic because we're forgetting this piece of the need for condoms. So I'm a hypocrite in saying this, because when I was single, I was not responsible. So do as I say, not as I do, and really take it seriously, because I very often work with women that have herpes. It's really often, and it's important, you know, for your health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
I consider myself lucky to have made it through without an STD. I can't even believe that I have. Not that I was flying my freak flag all the time everywhere, but still, I'm just surprised that I made it through my through my life without having an STD. I mean, I think it's miraculous. But also along those lines, the fastest growing demographic where we're seeing STDs rise at the highest rate is with 65 and over, the 65 and over crowd. So STDs are not this is not something that, is only when you're young, or when you seem like you would be too young to know better.
Right.
It's happening in the 65 and over crowd as well, at the highest rate.
Oral sex, it's from lots of different things. And one of my favorite stories, and I think I might have told it on a blab before, but I'm going to repeat it if I have, and forgive me if you've heard it. But I had a friend whose mother was in an assisted living, and she came to their house that Friday night for dinner with a paper bag filled with condoms. And she gave it to her grandson. And they're like, "Grandma, where'd you get these?" And she said, "At the assisted living, they had a talk about safe sex. And here you go." So it was like, only in the 21st century would grandma come from her assisted living with a bag full of condoms for her grandson. But wow, how great is that? Like, the fact that they were having the conversation, the fact that she felt comfortable talking to her grandson about safe sex. He was in his teens at the time. And, but that's been on the rise for sure. So, really what it boils down to is we need to be responsible for ourselves first, and then for our partners to have the conversation, so we don't go in blindly, with our eyes shut, hoping for the best. Just, get involved with somebody and hope they're on the same page. You talk about it. You talk about all this stuff. Have the tough conversations. And a good guy is grateful for the conversation. He will thank you. I had a client who had never, ever had any conversations like this before. She had been in so many relationships where she was not respected. She was dumped after a year and a half because the guy never saw her exclusively. I mean, she had no idea where she stood ever, because she never talked about it. And here she met this new guy. She's working with me, and she sat down with him and said, "Can we talk about exclusivity? Can we talk about safe sex? Can we talk about birth control? Can we talk about..." And he was like, "Wow, this is fantastic. Why don't we do this all the time?"
Yeah.
So it's not that hard. It takes courage. It helps to have a glass of wine in your hand, but it does take courage to do it. And you benefit so much when you have these conversations, and to continue the conversations. And I also just want to say, I know, Bobbi, you want to say something. I want to just say that, we all think we have to be some kind of stellar lover and go watch all these movies and get all the moves right. And the truth is that what people are yearning for more than anything is attention, connection, care. And Melanie and I were talking before about how men want to see a woman happy. They want to see them aroused and having orgasms and enjoying sex. It's you're not talking about selfish men who just want to just get off themselves and then, roll over and go to sleep. If you find a quality person and you're in a good relationship, a man wants to make a woman happy. A woman wants to make a man happy. And that's key. So it's not about the fancy moves. It's about care and connection.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not all
what?
Not all porn. Not all.
Porn stars? No.
I was going to say too about the conversation. This gal that I talked to yesterday, who's wanting to be intimate with her boyfriend, is afraid of having that exclusivity conversation. So basically, it's like, what do you need? I asked her, what do you need in order to feel safe, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? And one of the first thing she said, which is what I usually hear, is exclusivity. I need to know that we're exclusive. She's afraid to have the conversation. And it's important to have it regardless of what the answer is. Even if the answer is, I'm not ready for that, which will hurt. That's the answer you need to hear before you jump into bed with them anyway. So, and you may have talked about this with Melanie, but it's really important to have the conversation, not just so that you can clear everything up. Sometimes you have the conversation to find out you are not on the same page. And that's a good thing. That's a really positive thing. So, to either have further discussion or to, make your choice, right? Have you talked about the conversation, like how to have the conversation and what to say?
I actually was just going to say that. Melanie and I did talk a little bit about how tough that conversation can be, and that a lot of people avoid it because they don't really want to hear the answer. But also, I think, what I said at the beginning was that having that conversation doesn't mean you're in love with that person.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're decided that you're going to marry that person. And I think that's where we get a little confused. It's like, oh my God, I'm in love with you, and that's why I want to have sex with you. It's that I want to focus my attention on you. I want to see what an intimate relationship would be like with you. I like you. I want to close down my profile now and date you. That is, that's all it means. And so we have to stop interpreting what else it means and make it bigger so that we can have these conversations and not be guessing. But let's talk about how to have the conversation. So, Bobbi, do you want to do a little scripting?
Yeah, I'll start. I think what's important is that you start with something positive, with something sincere and honest and positive, because you're having the conversation because you like them, because you care about them. So it's really important. Step one is always, I'm super attracted to you. However you want to, if it were me, I'd be like, look, I want to hop into bed with you. I really dig you. I think that we have a great possibility and opportunity, to be great in the future together. And before I do, I'd like you to know what I need and be really direct. So start with something positive and then tell them what you need, and don't do that long story. You're talking to a man, remember? So no long stories, just really specific. What I need before we're intimate is I need to know that we're exclusive and that we're going to practice safe sex, whatever it is that you've decided, which of course you've done in advance. And then you check in with them. Is that something are you ready to talk about that? How do you feel about that? Does that work for you? However you want to do it. And it's really kind of that simple. I recommend that my clients write it down. I don't care if you have to read it. But that's important. That's how important the conversation is. But again, it doesn't have to be this, 5 years ago, this happened. And then I decided, I really dig you. I'm really interested in what we could be together. I want to know we're walking down the same path. So what I need is this. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I love that. So always start with the positive, because also men like to win. So you want to set them up to win. And again, you mentioned that men don't like the long story and the convoluted, because they're sitting there trying to track you, and they're like, I'm not sure which part I'm supposed to track. So you make it easy. You bottom line, save the long stories for your girlfriends, and then end with a question, because this is a conversation. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue, and you're really curious about his response. It's not just, this is what I need,
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. Zip it.
Like the first thing you learn in sales, right? Ask for the sale and shut up. So
Well, and I have always found that this conversation is pretty easy, because I just say, I don't have sex without monogamy, and if you're willing to do that, then that's great. And it's been I think we overthink this stuff. It does not take it's just a simple thing. I only sleep with one person at a time. How do you feel about that? You agree? Great. We've reached an understanding. I think that that a lot of times women, and I don't want to generalize, but we have a tendency to think that this has to be a very dramatic thing where we have to, set the stage and we have to, do what, and it really is, it's a very simple conversation. I only sleep with someone if they're only sleeping with me. How do you feel about that? And 9 times out of 10, the person has said to me, yeah, that's exactly it. Great, fine with me. I had no desire. I have no desire to sleep with anybody but you. And it's really over and done with. And then we can move on to the other things, like
sex.
like what we're really talking about, and the things that make us happy, and the things that we may be facing based on age, and other things that might be a more in-depth conversation. But that first conversation is pretty basic.
Yeah.
I only sleep with someone who's only sleeping with me. How do you feel?
And you can use that in many different instances. That sort of say, give them your positive feelings, tell them what you need, check in with them. And Sandy, sorry, go ahead.
No, I want to also just say and sort of piggyback on this, because there's another layer to this if you're dating online, when to ask somebody to shut their profile down, or when you shut your profile down, because dating exclusively doesn't automatically mean my profile is down. And so I think that has to be an additional part of the conversation. Don't assume that if he's just sleeping with you, he's not checking out his online profile at night. And this is cause for a lot of concern for a lot of people. So just, again, state what you want. This is what works for me. How does that work for you? There are a lot of people who say, well, you just do what you want, and this is what I'm going to do. But that doesn't work for me. I don't know if that works for you. Great. But I think if you really value yourself, you want the person to be on the same page. And, you don't want them window shopping when they, you fall asleep and they're on their phone swiping right on Tinder. That's not going to be too cool.
No.
But I can't tell you how many times women have been having sex and thinking that they're exclusive, and the profile still remains open. The guy just doesn't want to shut it down yet. So yeah, if that's important to you, bring it up. So Bobbi, you and I were talking about giving out some homework to the people listening today. Do you remember? I remember what it is if you don't. We talked so everything that we're talking about today, about what it is that you need in deciding what you need and want before you have sex. So the homework, if you choose to take it on, we can call it home play because it's not really work, is to figure out what it is that you need to have to feel safe having sex. Script it out, write it out. And so when you bring it up, it'll be spontaneous. It'll be easy to have the conversation. It won't feel really awkward because you'll have been prepared. So much of dating, happens where somebody takes you by surprise by asking you something that you're not prepared for. Bobbi, you and I have done blabs about what to say on a first date, and some of the questions that get asked on a first date, which are like, what? I don't know how to answer that. And then you say too many things. And then, so it's the same with sex. It's getting the version of what you want to say down. We also talked about looking at your triggers. So if there's something that triggers you, if a man, makes a move too quickly and you're not comfortable, and that's a trigger for you, practice being neutral before you address it. So you don't want to be snippy and bitchy in your conversation. You want to practice neutralizing your tone. So one of the ways that I like to help clients do that, or help people do that, is, first of all, breathing helps. When you notice a trigger, one of the ways to let it go is to not absorb it, but just observe it. So you see, oh, this is triggering me. And you're kind of looking at it as an objective observer. Oh, he is making a move on me. This is interesting. Instead of going, oh my God, I'm going to kill him. Oh, look at that. He's making a move on me. And just kind of let it float by. And I like to kind of put it in a cloud and let it float away. because as soon as you let it in, it's like your heart's racing, your breathing gets faster. So you want to slow everything down, because when you're slower, you're less reactive. And if you can't talk about it right away, don't do it. Wait until you're calm. Take control of your conversation and have it when you're calm. You can say, I'd like to talk to you about this, but right now I'm just a little agitated. So, can I get back to you in a half hour? And I think it takes men 20 minutes to calm down from something and women 30 minutes. I've been hearing this from a few people. So give yourself the time to calm yourself down if you need to. And then talk, check in with him, make sure it's a good time. And just say, listen, I'm really attracted to you. But like when you went to grab my breast before I was ready to let you do that, I got a little uptight, So, I just want to talk to you about sex and when I'm ready, whatever. But prepare and calm yourself down.
Yeah. And that preparation that you talked about, Sandy, with the homework, with the deciding on the conversation, what you need to do first is you need to decide what you need to feel safe spiritually, physically, emotionally. What do you need, even if it's environmentally? What do you need to feel safe before you have sex? And then list that. And then, like Sandy said, go ahead and just use those 3 steps, say something positive to him, let him know what you need in a clear and direct way, and check in with him. And that way you're going to take care of yourself. And I love with this topic, I love to talk about the Dalai Lama talks about pleasure versus happiness. And pleasure is, in the moment, and happiness is forever. And I know from my experience being single, I didn't always go for the happiness when it came to sex. I did not sort of handle myself well that way for many, decades. So that's something else to think about when it comes to dating and sex, especially at this time in your life. You're not just if you are jumping in bed with guys and you like it, go for it. But if you're looking for something real, really think about happiness and what the right move is in order for you to reach your happiness, not just your momentary pleasure.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, Brenda Bouchard talks about that too, being impulsive versus thinking about the long term. Impulsivity often gets you into trouble. So when you're thinking about long term, it requires more thought. It requires you to honor and respect yourself first. Yeah. And, what I always say is, I want you to value yourself and be a woman of value. Because when you value yourself, you attract your highest quality partner. And a good man is going to respect your wishes when you have standards. If you don't have standards, somebody's going to step all over you. So get some standards, figure out what they are, write them down, practice it, and you'll have safer, better, more satisfying sex. And hopefully it will lead to the relationship that you're looking for.
I'd just like to add one thing. There's nothing wrong with being playful, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying the experience and not spending so much time when you've gotten to the point where you're there. Then it's okay to have fun and to be playful and to let go and to not hold on to all those things from our past that are blocking us, and to accept our bodies and just to say, this is it. I'm in this moment. I'm having sex with this great guy where we've talked everything out. Now it's time for me to relax and just enjoy that, because really sex is fun and sex is great and it's healthy and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And really at our age, we should be having the best sex of our life right now. Our children are grown. We are at a very different place as far as the pressures of life. Things aren't as difficult as they once were if you were raising kids and trying to juggle career and little league games and all that sort of thing. So women after a certain age should be have a much more carefree life, and part of having fun in that life is having lots of good sex.
Amen. All right, go forth, have good sex.
That's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to again give a shout out to my Facebook group, actually, which I haven't talked about yet. So it's not again; it's the first time. My Facebook group, Your Last First Date, and I have my little paper. So go to facebook.com/Your Last First Date. Join this group. We have these conversations about sex, about dating, about relationships. People celebrate their wins and their challenges. And you can go to lastfirstdate.com, and I've got like 650 blog posts up there. Lots of good information. Bobbi, tell everybody how to find you.
Best way to find me is on datelikeagrownup.com. And I have a Facebook group as well, but we're, never mind. I have a Facebook group too. It's a private page, and I find that it's like yours, Sandy. There's some really great conversation there. So that's facebook.com/DLAGU. Date Like a Grown Up.
Date Like a Grown Up. Excellent. And Melanie?
Oh, you can find me at MelaniRobinson.com, and Melanie is spelled with no E. So it's MelaniRobinson.com, and you can follow along on my escapades dating after 50. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Collab with us next month.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
Bye.